How's it going, folks? This is Dave Cullen from the Kickout, your weekly pro wrestling guide. So, as we mentioned at the end of last week's show, what we're going to be doing now in future, as well as our main show that we're going to be doing every week, brought down to about an hour, we're also going to be doing some more exclusive stuff to the podcast, such as interviews and the previews. Like, obviously next week we'll be reviewing OTT and all the stuff from SummerSlam and NXT. But we thought we'd have a bit of a taste for it first. Like, you know, as we saw earlier on this week, we had another round of our prediction league this week, where we previewed NXT, Brooklyn and SummerSlam. And joining us now with me in studio is our guest for that, the creator of HopSpot Studio, the documentary, Nathan McDonagh. Nathan, thanks for joining us here in the Kickhouse.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, I have to ask you, what first inspired you to do the documentary in the first place?
It's a bit of a sad story in some ways. So I went to the Fight Factory Open Day there last year, and I loved it, and I really wanted to get into wrestling and start wrestling. And then my mum was like, maybe you shouldn't, because I have a heart condition and there's a good chance you have it too. So it meant then I couldn't go back for a while, because then there was like a 9-month waiting list to get screened for this heart condition.
Right.
So I got really down about it, and I was kind of like, I don't want to be around wrestling anymore. I hate wrestling. It's because I can't be a part of it. And then the more I kind of thought about it, I was like, no, wait, I am, because fans are as much a part of the show as anything else.
100%.
So I decided that I was going to make this documentary as kind of like a love letter to Irish wrestling, but also a tribute to all the people who they put things into wrestling, people like yourself and the Low Blows crew, and all the people like Jade does graphic design for the wrestling, like everyone who they put the work into wrestling, but they don't necessarily wrestle themselves.
Yeah. So in other words, people who contribute, who are not the wrestlers as such, like the fans, as you say, as you said. So, and well, how was have you got more of an update on the condition of yourself? If you ever thought about going back to wrestling?
I got the all clear there about 2 months ago, and then just kind of like serial procrastination, and also just bad luck for different things coming up. Like beginners training for them is usually the weekends, and it's always the weekends people are like, we need you to go here, we need you to do this, so it means that I can't. But tentatively looking at the start of September to get going.
Well, if it makes you feel better, like Dean James was on our show a couple of times, and he always said just come in once a weekend and then just build from there, like, you know. So because if it's not for the actual training itself, it's the enjoyment of it, you know. Yeah. And you know yourself, the training, we both trained before, like it's very enjoyable to start with the rolls and stuff like that. So even if you get a feel for that, it would be cool as well. But in terms of but go back to your documentary, like so what have you really dabbled in so far in terms of who you've talked to, and have you talked to different fans or promotions, or have you got a bit of everything so far?
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of everything. We've spoken to a fair few fans, notably, like kind of the longest interview we've done so far, and one of the best ones was with Hayley the Tiny,
yes,
off of Twitter, and
very lovely lady,
and Steve Robinson, who both were absolutely fantastic, and they were kind of telling us all about coming down from the north to come to the wrestling here, but also about the scene up there. Also, we were in Fight Factory for a day, filming everybody training, and then we've got other interviews lined up. But originally the other thing was, we were like, we'll probably be able to record with people on the weekends, because that's when people are usually free aside from work. But now, because wrestling in the island has blown up so much, there's wrestling every weekend, so it's just trying to find a day where there's no shows and there's nothing on, that you can have a chat with somebody.
Yeah, even this week, we were just talking about it in our show, like, you know, because this week is all the OTT, all the Low Blows, and then Phoenix is next week with Main Stage Wrestling. And like, then there's a bit of a gap until I think the next OTT, but still, like, there's so much to talk about, like, you're right there. So
yeah, it's just every weekend there's just something for someone to do, because like you're never short of something to do on the island for wrestling.
Yeah, now us ourselves, now me and Dara haven't really been up in the north yourself. Like, how could you describe the scene there for yourself now, from Hayley's perspective and everyone up there?
It's a really good, like, it's thriving pretty well, considering like the talent pool down in Dublin is massive, because you have like you've Fight Factory and you've Main Stage, and everybody is in those schools, and then up the north you have the compound for PW, and then you have Uprising School,
right.
And both of them are putting out like fantastic wrestlers, and they're both putting on really, really good shows. And I think it's one of the cool things now is, with PW and Uprising now kind of looking to put out more of their shows on VOD, people from down the south are going to get more of a flavour of it, and then they'll probably go up and travel.
It's cool now because now something like the Lobos POD now is helping get exposure for all these promotions now. So it's a pretty cool thing. That's where your documentary itself is going to be on as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the documentary is going to be hosted over there. So once we finish it up, get it all edited and sorted, it'll be going up there. And then aside from that, we're going to be setting off on our own to do a live weekly show.
Nice.
Called The Hope Spot, which is kind of going to be like part video podcast, part sketches, skits. It's a whole thing.
That's awesome, man. Look forward to that. Like now, in terms of like, as well as like, as you mentioned, all the video skits that you have plans for a live video, is there any other people or anyone like that you plan to talk to with regards to the documentary?
Yeah, I don't really want to spoil some of it.
That's fine.
But we've got some pretty big and interesting names from Irish wrestling. Familiar faces that everybody would know, but also at the same time we have kind of people that the unsung heroes, as it were. And then we've also with big news coming out from different promotions outside of Dublin as well, such as Phoenix. We're looking to have a chat with them to see how things are going and how it's all getting set up down there.
Is there the thought of possibly looking into your documentary for promotions outside of Ireland altogether? Because you're a Progress fan yourself. You go now and then with part of the Irish Wrestling Bunch from the forum. Have you ever thought of that for your documentary at all?
A little bit, but at the same time we were kind of like, I want to kind of keep it self-contained, and then maybe we'll kind of branch it out further when we get into the other kind of main Hope Spot stuff.
In the meantime, prioritising just Irish stuff like so.
Yeah.
Okay, makes more sense anyway. What have been your highlights so far of doing it? Like, is there any particular interview that you thought, God, that's going to be the best thing ever, or particular methods of filming something or creating something that you enjoyed?
The fun and interesting part is the fact that we're doing it all using kind of like guerrilla-ish methods, because we can't afford a proper setup. We have phones with Pro Tools on them. We have microphones that we've got. We have stabilizers, tripods, the whole lot. And we're trying to do it on a shoestring budget. Because at the same time, not only is it kind of this, as I said, a love letter to Irish wrestling, it's also kind of proving to people that you don't necessarily need these massive setups and a lot of money behind it to make something that's pretty good.
No, it's sure. Like, I agree. Like, if it makes you feel better, like, it's one of the reasons, like, for our show couldn't do anything too much because we wouldn't have the equipment, so hence we have to rely on the setup for the radio station. So we're lucky in that sense, like so. But has there been more challenging, or because of like the guerrilla setup as you mentioned, like to have?
Oh yeah, it makes it 10 times worse because so I have an iPhone 8 and then I have Filmic Pro on that. So to record on Filmic Pro takes up so much memory on my phone.
I can imagine.
One interview I think was like a 28 gigabyte file, so that meant that I had to delete so many precious memories, and then that was just to keep the interview on the phone, because then I had to try and export it off to other file saving websites. But it's a nightmare by times, but at the same time I get to see the footage afterwards and I'm kind of watching it and I know that it's going to be something that looks good and sounds good, and then once I have that, I don't mind the trouble that goes into it.
Was other than that, has been any surprises that you've discovered, not just in terms of what you found in Irish wrestling, but in terms of maybe stories you've heard, like, from people you've talked to, and like that? Has been that like, oh wow, I didn't expect that, like so?
Not really. Everybody's kind of, not to say it's like a run-of-the-mill kind of interview with everybody, but everybody kind of tells you more or less not the same thing, but I'll ask people, like, where do you think Irish wrestling's going to be in 5 years? Or like, what would your memories of Irish wrestling be if it all folds tomorrow? And everyone kind of says something along the same lines of like, I think in 5 years it's going to be huge and there'll be shows in the 3 Arena. And then when you say, what if it closes down? Everyone says, oh, I'm just going to remember all the amazing times I had and the friends that I've made from it. And that's kind of surprising in one way, because I thought everybody would have like their own kind of thing that they want to say, but everyone's kind of it's a community kind of.
Yeah. And
then at the same time, the main thing that surprised me was just kind of the amount of support we got when we announced, because within a couple of hours there was like 30 or 40 people getting in touch being like, hey, if you need anything I can give you a hand, or people just simply retweeting the announcement for it made a world of difference, because then it meant it was in people's consciousness then. And then at the same time, at that point we hadn't announced Hope Spot or anything. It was just the documentary itself.
So it was just the murmurs, so we're just getting retweeted as opposed to the actual announcement.
Yeah, because the main announcement was when we had to close down the Michael May Facts account and rebrand it as Hope Spot, which kind of annoyed a few people, but at the same time it was worth it, because it meant then that we could kind of repurpose a fan-made tool into another fan-made tool.
It works actually, because like that got traction like as it was, like, and all that is still there, so it's clever. So.
Yeah, we didn't expect people to jump on board with that as much as we did.
Are you expecting people to go unfollow straight away? Like, so
we were just like, everyone's just going to unfollow this. They're not going to be interested in a documentary. They're just going to go like, I want my Michael May facts. Please go away.
Well, I might as well ask yourself now, like, since you've asked the question to so many people, what do you think wrestling's going to be like in 5 years' time in Ireland?
I mean, things tend, especially like even in wrestling, it's very cyclical, and it's like it's a boom and a bust. And at the minute we're in this kind of massive bubble, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And I fear that there's every chance that, you know, there'll be oversaturation for people, and they'll be like starting to wash their hands of it, or little decisions will annoy people, and then you see on Twitter people get outraged over things. So I'd like to think that in 5 years everything is running along as good as it is now, even better. Like, as people said, we'll be running 3 Arena and stuff. At the same time, I worry that there might be smaller promotions or even bigger promotions that end up kind of having to reduce the number of shows and close down doors. Even, not to say OTT would do it, but coming from where they are now, having to find a new venue, considering the Tivoli is going to be gone, and there's so few venues like Dublin. The Tivoli and in Dublin that would suit a wrestling show and the crowd sizes that they bring in.
It's more so the point in Dublin that, like, it's not so much that there is a good amount of venues, but the problem is they're just completely booked. Vicar Street, for example, would be ideal, but just completely booked for like a year and a half. Like, so that's the problem. Like, you know, unless there's a place like that would be big enough but have enough of a gap for it, though, it creates that problem as well. So I don't know. In the meantime, it's doing well on the Star Road. Like, you know, there's a show on tonight. So, like, recording this on the Saturday. So, and that's an ideal venue. Maybe not for every month, but every 2 months or something like that. So.
Yeah, like that's a fantastic venue. And like the one time that we were all there, everyone said like, can't complain about it. Like, the only complaint some people would have is if you're towards the back, because it's flat seating. If somebody stands up, then it's a problem. But like, I can't see anybody fan wise complaining about the arena now.
Sure, even the Lewis journey up is like is good crack going up, is like, because like bands are going back and forth, especially when you're going back. In our case, we'll be going straight to low blows, so like brilliant. So
it's so handy, and it's completely like, it's connected by transport. It's not too far outside the city, and even then there's like, if you just walk 5 minutes away, there's a McDonald's down the road, and then there's a Spar and stuff. So like, it's pretty good. Even if we're going to lose the Tivoli, like, it's still good to have that. One
thing I'll ask you, if it wasn't the documentary, like, you know, and if it wasn't professional wrestling, did you ever see yourself involved in pro wrestling, be involved in any other capacity whatsoever? Like, recently you've been announcer for Five Factory. Is that something you ever pictured be doing, like, if it wasn't doing the wrestling physically as such?
Yeah, a little bit. When I was like, it's a really embarrassing story. When I was like 15 or 16,
right.
My mum was like, you can't wrestle, I won't let you wrestle. And I was like, what if I wanted to do something else but it was in wrestling? And she was like, fine then. And I emailed Fight Factory, and I was like, hey, can I become a referee or like a ring announcer or something? I can't wrestle, but like, I'll be willing to do this. And then I got an email back in the email to kind of show that I was like, I was tall and I was broad. I sent pictures of me like standing in a doorway that was shorter than I was, and a picture of me and Finn Balor, because I was like, just to show I had connections. And then I got an email back from Phil Boyd, and he was like, what would you be willing to do? And I got all excited, and I went to my mum. I was like, they sent me an email back, and she was like, where's the school? I was like, it's in Bray. And she was like, nope, never. She was like, back, put that away. So I was kind of always like, if I wasn't to wrestle, I'd love to ring announce, or I'd love to be a referee, or I'd love to be involved or around wrestling in some capacity.
That's cool. I'll leave it with this question anyway. Like, in terms of the documentary, what do you hope it can achieve in terms of Irish wrestling, and what do you hope it can be remembered for?
For what it would achieve, I would hope that people would look at it, especially outside of Ireland, and kind of go, there's something special there, and it's worth going for, and it's worth travelling for. But also at the same time, I'd also hope that it would give fans who might, like I said, might necessarily be able to wrestle, it'd give them that sense of, I'm part of something. Even if I'm not in the ring, I'm still part of everything.
Yeah.
And then for what I'd hope people would take from it afterwards as well, just that we've got a really, really good scene here, and it's unlike anything else in the world, and I'd hope that people would appreciate that, like, this is a fan-made documentary. It's by fans and for fans, and hopefully then it goes on to do something to help the scene.
Oh, well, I mean, we obviously hope you do a great job, but anyway, here in Lobos, you can find the Hopspot studio exclusively on Lobos VOD, coming very soon, isn't it?
No, actually, so the documentary itself will be going up on the VOD. It's a while off yet because we're still kind of hammering out people to get times, but aside from that, that's the only Hopespot content that will be up on the Loblos network.
Right.
Aside from that, I'll be working with Loblos on some really fun and weird ideas that we have. I don't want to say too much about them because they're retoolings of kind of popular ideas that people like, really good shows that people have done, but with that wrestling twist that kind of gets people in.
Yeah.
And aside from that, away from the documentary, Corporate Keane, Aina Brown and Butch from OTT will all be working on the new show, The Hope Spot.
Awesome. So I wish you all the best with it anyway. So Nathan, thanks for coming in anyway. Like, we had your predictions on earlier on. We're going to do them actually right now, but anyway, we get the idea. Well, listen, best of luck with everything in the for HopSpot Studios, and we'll hope to talk to you again soon. So
thank you so much.
We'll talk to you again soon.